Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Champions Adjust sports talk show, where me, Aaron Machbitz, have just decided to talk about sports because I love them. I went over my background on episode number one, but just to recap that very quickly before we jump into the biggest stories, news from this week in sports. A former Division I baseball player and a former professional wrestler. So the majority of this show we will be talking about Major League Baseball and WWE. There was a massive pay-per-view last night, Survivor Series. So we're going to talk about that, talk about MLB free agency, a little bit of NFL, and then we'll go from there. But to kick off this episode, a buddy of mine sent me this really interesting little tidbit, and I'm gonna share that with you now, and then we'll get into current events. But he said that March of 2016 to the end of March 2017. So March 2016 to the end of March 2017 was the greatest year in sports, right? Men's college basketball ends in a buzzer beater. NBA, Cavs come back 3-1 to win. Men's college baseball, Coastal Carolina wins their first title after surviving 6 elimination games. MLB, Cubs and Indians go 7, and the Cubs eventually break the curse. You have college football. Clemson scores on a go-ahead TD with 1 second left to beat Bama. And then you had, in the NFL, you have the Patriots come back from the Falcons meltdown. Plus, you had the Olympics and the World Baseball Classic. Holy cow. Like March 2016 to March 2017, arguably the greatest year in sports. So I appreciate you, Sam, for sending me that. Now, let's jump right into NFL. I don't have a ton to say about the NFL. Talked about sort of my Super Bowl picks last week. But to recap those, originally at the start of the season, I picked the 49ers and the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl. I didn't expect the majority of the 49ers roster to absolutely be crushed with injuries. Yes, Brock Purdy is playing today because I'm filming this on December 1st, 2024 for the live viewers. But obviously, if you're watching it on YouTube, then it's the next day or the days after inside of December. And so we'll see how the 49ers do against the Bills today. But basically, they have to win sort of the rest of their games this season to maybe jump into the playoffs. And maybe that gives them enough time for some of their players to get off the injury list, back healthy and ready to go. But I don't think it's the 49ers' year. But I do think it's the Lions' year. And so I've rearranged my Super Bowl pick, probably one that a lot of people are choosing as well. And it's going to be the Bills versus the Lions in the Super Bowl. We have a really big game today, which is the Eagles and the Ravens, which some people think is a potential Super Bowl preview. I don't think so. I think the Eagles and the Ravens will both fumble it in the playoffs, wherever they get to. But they do have two of the best running backs in the league, dynamic quarterbacks, great defenses. So those teams are really great. And maybe it's the Eagles and Ravens year to move past that sort of playoff, stuff they have going on where they just don't play as well in the playoffs and they don't get it done potentially in those high pressure, big deal situations. And you could say the same about the Bills and Josh Allen, but he's having a great year this year. I think this is where he moves past Patrick Mahomes if they play in the championship game, or maybe it's against the Ravens, whatever the case may be. But I think the Bills make it to the Super Bowl. I think the Lions make it to the Super Bowl. They get past the Eagles in what could be a really, really good championship game there. But ultimately, I'd love to see the Lions get the Super Bowl win because, like I said last week, I think Mike Tomlin and Dan Campbell are the absolute best coaches in the NFL, potentially in all of sports. And I'd love to see Dan Campbell just sort of win that Super Bowl for the city of Detroit, for his players, and for a new way of going about coaching, about loving your players and taking care of your players and being there for your players and believing in them as a way to motivate them to bring out the best in them. And I think that's a really strong approach. And he's been sort of the cornerstone of that coaching mentality, something that I take with my own players as well as being a former player. I also coach baseball now. And so I'm really invested in these types of things and different ways to bring out the best in our players. And I think Dan Campbell and Mike Tomlin do an amazing job of that. So that's sort of some NFL stuff. You also have this Thanksgiving. Was it? What was the? I don't know. Whenever the Bears played and they lost in that like last 30 seconds, I guess that was on Thanksgiving, right? And so The Chicago Bears have done something they've never done before in their 104-year franchise history, which is fire their head coach in the middle of the season. I mean, that guy, Matt Eberfluss, just made one of the worst coaching decisions we've ever seen. I think Caleb Williams has a ton of potential. We haven't really seen that because there's been so many different changes, and the Bears are notorious for really drowning and dragging down their high-profile draft picks, including their quarterbacks. And so the Bears now embark into uncharted territory, but they've been playing a lot better the last few weeks. They just keep losing these really close games based on some poor decision making or not understanding that they can win these games. A lot of stuff goes into that, but I think that was a really bad decision. I was watching the game with my mom, and we were just like, "Whoa!" So he gets fired. And now they embark in some uncharted territory, and I hope it improves. I hope they can bring out the best in Caleb Williams because he's someone who has a lot of really, really strong physical skills. Now maybe you can bring on the mental skills, the coaching, and make that guy flourish as an NFL quarterback. That would be awesome. So that's just a little bit about what's going on there in the NFL. And then Aaron Rodgers was in the news again. I think he was on Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's awesome. Their whole show is awesome. The whole crew is awesome. He does like an interview with Aaron Rodgers every Tuesday. I'm sure everyone, if you're interested in this sports show, you're definitely checking out Pat McAfee every Tuesday with Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, for some reason, is like a very I don't know, like people want to pay attention to him for some reason. I think he's just a low key, cool, really, really sweet dude. Would love to hang out with him, pick his brain about all the stuff that he's been to, because he is an ayahuasca enthusiast. I love psychedelics as well. So I feel like we talk about that. And, his darkness retreat and all these things he's done to change the way he thinks and feels, his perception, his cool, calm demeanor, all that stuff is amazing. But he's just talking about in this interview with Pat McAfee, more of a conversation about, he does not sure what he's going to do going into next season. He's over 40, and this has been a rough year for the Jets and for him. And last year he got injured in like the fourth play of the season. So there's a lot of things going on. And he said he wasn't really sure if he was going to play or not. And I think that's okay, especially really late in your career. He would have never said that early in his career when he was just one of the best quarterbacks in the league with the Packers, right? And so now he's thinking about his life after football, what he wants to do, if he wants to play, if the Jets will have him. Just normal conversation, basically, that he's having with a friend, and everyone in the media sort of went nuts. But I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's awesome, and he's obviously, without a doubt, no matter what you think of him off the field, his personal opinions about him, how he goes about his business, he's absolutely, without a doubt, one of the best quarterbacks to play in the NFL. That's why he has 4 MVPs in the NFL. He has 1 Super Bowl win, one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers. There will never be Aaron Rodgers slander on this podcast. And so another great quarterback that I just want to touch on is Joe Burrow. His team not having a great year. They don't really have a running game. They don't really have a defense. But Joe Burrow is having an MVP type season. I think he has like 27 touchdowns, maybe 4, 5, 6 interceptions, like crazy numbers, over 3,000 passing yards. And obviously being overlooked for the MVP because his team is not really in playoff contention. I think if they lose today, their NFL playoff hopes dropped to like 5% or something like that. If they win today, obviously they got to win out the rest of the year, and some other things have to go happen for them to get lucky to get into the playoffs. But Joe Burrow is having his best season to date, and his team is probably having their worst season. And so that's just always an interesting thing. But shout out to Joe Burrow. We also love him here on the Champions Adjust sports talk show. And so that's the NFL stuff. Not really going to talk about that much. We are going to talk about Major League Baseball right now. As I said, former Division I baseball player, also currently coach baseball now. So I'm very invested, and I love baseball very, very, very much. And so MLB free agency, what's going around right now, is super interesting. We had some signings this week. And so on November 25th, you had the Los Angeles Angels. The Los Angeles Angels signed left-handed pitcher UC Kikuchi, and reported terms were 3 years, $63 million. I know I botched his name last week. I'm botching it again this week, so I apologize to that guy. But that's a big signing for the Angels. And then sort of the biggest signing of the week, the one that everyone's been talking about, is another left-handed pitcher that happened on November 27th, 2024, was left-handed pitcher Blake Snell. And the Los Angeles Dodgers are in agreement on a 5-year, $182 million contract, of course, pending his physical. Blake Snell had a very challenging start to his last season with the Giants, but in the second half, he dominated and showed a lot of his Cy Young award-winning stuff later in the year. He has 2 Cy Young awards, and I think this is a crazy stat, but he has 2 Cy Young awards, which, yeah, great, but only 1 complete game. And so he showed who he really was as a pitcher in the second half of last year, really dominating. And so the Los Angeles Dodgers getting him makes their potential 2025 rotation really fucking solid. And so, yeah, so I mean, they're the reigning World Series champions. They get a 2-time Cy Young Award winner in the first 9-figure deal of the winter. And here are some details about Blake Snell's new contract: $52 million signing bonus, limited no trade clause, and no opt-outs, and some deferred money. I think there's going to be some deferred money in almost every contract we see now that Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers have set that precedent. But I think what's interesting now about the Los Angeles Dodgers as they go out, well, um, actually, let me just talk about, before I go into that, because there was a couple other signings that I think were important, and then I'll talk about what I think about the Dodgers in a second. So, speaking of their potential rotation, because they just signed Blake Snell, and so Buster Olney, who's a fantastic baseball analyst, tweeted out this a couple days ago saying, here's the possible Dodgers rotation for 2025. You have Shohei Ohtani coming back from injury. You have Blake Snell. You have Yamamoto. You have Glasnow, Kershaw, and potentially signing the other Japanese sensation, Roki Sasaki. So that's a 6-man rotation, giving a lot of their pitchers, like the Japanese pitchers, more break in between because that's what they're used to on the Japanese baseball schedule. And then in terms of depth, outside of that, potentially speaking, they have Bobby Miller, Dustin May, and Tony Gonsolin. So that could be an absolutely monstrous rotation, right? Some guys are going to get hurt, as we know. They dealt with that a lot last year. But Blake Snell, Ohtani, maybe Kershaw's coming back. We don't know what we're going to see from him, but we know that Kershaw's an absolute gamer, and every time he goes out in the bump, he is, one of the best pitchers we've ever seen in baseball. So we'll see what he has left in the tank. And I mean, Bobby Miller, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, these guys are great. Don't know where Walker Buehler or is going to be, or Jake Flattery is going to be. They were on the team, obviously played a role in their World Series victory last season. But then the Dodgers also signed on November 30th. They signed super utility man Tony Edman. They agreed to a 5-year, $74 million contract extension. The deal runs from 2025 to 2029 and includes a 6th-year club option. There's also a $17 million signing bonus and deferred money, and some deferred money. Some deferred money is going to be in every contract we see for the rest of the year. So that's some of the signings that we've seen this week. Now back to what I was saying about the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? So they signed Snell, they re-signed Edman. We've seen what their potential rotation might look like in 2025. And now what's, I think, the most dangerous thing about the Dodgers is they finally got this monkey off their back. Now, for the last, I don't know, since the COVID year when they won that World Series, they've been one of the best teams in baseball. And Dave Roberts has gotten a lot of flack for not being able to win the big one. And there was conversations going into this playoffs that if he didn't win this big one, he was getting fired. And so the Dodgers had to change their mentality to get this win done. I mean, this maybe was a lot of injuries, like maybe not the best team they've ever had, but they still got it done in the playoffs, which proves to them that now they can do it. I talked about a lot this last week about this mindset of being a champion. Like when you've done it, you have this belief that you can do it before. But when you get to these big games and you keep losing in these situations, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to react. You don't know how to respond because you just feel like every time you get this close, you just get knocked off. And Dave Roberts and the managing staff and the culture is a big part of that when it comes to winning the big one, when it comes to winning the game when the lights are on the brightest. And so now that they've done that, with this core group of guys, like they might re-sign Teoscar Hernandez and all these sorts of people, and they have the big dogs and Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and all these people who are unbelievably good at baseball. Then they bring in a two two-time Cy Young Award winner. And now they have a belief in the clubhouse with the players that, yes, we are really good, but we're also really good when it matters the most. We come up with clutch hits. We're big time in big moments. We believe in every guy that's put on the position, no matter if they have deferred money in their contract or not. And so that's a huge thing for the Dodgers moving forward. Now they know they're always going to have, they've always had pressure. Like for the last 5 years, everyone said they're the best team in baseball. So the pressure is no different. They've always been said that they're going to be the best team in the league, right? And so that's what people expect of them. But now they finally got it done. They beat the Yankees in the World Series. They beat the Padres. They beat all these people to get to the World Series, and then they got it done in very dominating fashion. So now going into every season with the roster, the players, the personnel that they have, Dave Roberts and the whole culture now believe that they can get it done. And that's a huge mindset advantage going into these big time playoff situations where everyone in the National League is gunning for you, especially in that division where the Giants are trying to get better. The Padres are going to be better. Like everyone's coming for your ass. And now, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Like, what was it? Kiki Hernandez in the playoffs when doing a post-game interview was just like, fuck it. Like, we don't care anymore. We don't give a fuck. And that's the attitude, right? You love your teammates. You care about them. You link arms. You're like, we're going in the trenches together. But all this outside noise, all this outside opinion doesn't fucking matter. Fuck it. Go in, do your job, execute, and let's have a ton of fun doing it. And that's the culture that you want to bring. Like, I mean, that's what Dan Campbell does with his players in Detroit. And that's what, I think what Dave Roberts finally got done with the Dodgers and their players. And that's really what championship cultures are all about. And once you get that monkey off your back and you win that big one, it just feels, it's freeing because then you can do it. Excuse me. And then there's this ultimate belief like, oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. No matter what. No matter what. And so that's huge for the Dodgers. I don't know if I'm a big fan or not. I mean, I have Blake Trinan, who I went to South Dakota State with, plays for the Dodgers. So anytime they win, I'm super pumped for him. I love that. But other than that, I don't really have an opinion. And so other big news for the week was that Juan Soto signs a deal with Celsius. So this dude's about to sign like a $700 million contract as one of the biggest free agent names that we've ever had. And he just goes and signs a deal with Celsius. So he just needs more money, right? Good for Juan Soto. Really good. Also, we had a retirement this week. One of the coolest and I think one of the nicest and one of the best players we've seen in a while, Brandon Crawford. He retired. His career numbers were really good. I'm not sure if he's a Hall of Famer or not, but just like a really, really, really solid Major League Baseball player that did a lot of really good work, was very fundamentally sound, an amazing defender, and according to a lot of reports and his teammates, is one of the best teammates around. And with his career numbers, he played 14 seasons, 1,682 games in the regular season, 43 postseason games, 1,404 hits, 44 triples, 147 homers, 295 doubles. He had 4 Gold Glove awards, right? So really good shortstop, 3 All-Star appearances in 14 seasons. He had a 4th place finish in the MVP race in 2021. And all of that, he had 2 championships with the San Francisco Giants, which were the team that he rooted for as a kid, which is really, really, really cool. And, I don't know if he'll stay in San Francisco or if he'll become part of the team or whatever, like, Buster Posey is doing right now. But we just want to give a shout out to Brandon Crawford for an excellent Major League Baseball career. Hats off to you, my friend. Beautiful career. 2 championships that I absolutely adored because I grew up. The first 12 years of my life were right outside of San Francisco in the city called Foster City, California. We're about 45 minutes away from San Francisco, and I went to the games all the time. Giants are my favorite team. They still are my favorite team, along with the St. Louis Cardinals. That's a story for another day, why they're competing. Third team is probably the Texas Rangers because I live out here in Dallas now. So those 3 teams have brought me a lot of joy in terms of winning over the last, 30 years of my life. Why I love baseball. I've been very blessed with seeing a lot of championship wins and that run that the San Francisco Giants had where they won 3 World Series titles every other year. I mean, it's made Buster Posey's career. Obviously, it made Brandon Crawford's career. It was super cool. Pablo Sandoval was fired up back then. That was a cool run for him and all these guys. And so, cheers to Brandon Crawford. Amazing career and fantastic, man. And then we talked about Tommy Edman getting signed. So we had a couple signings this week. And then we'll just go into some the top 10 guys who are still available in MLB free agency, right? We all know that Juan Soto's number one. Juan Soto is the biggest name on the board. Like Shohei Ohtani was the biggest name on the board when he was there. But you have this 26-year-old slugger who's just, man, he might set a record for present day value with his next deal because he had a career year with the Yankees. He's a once in a lifetime hitter. He doesn't bring as much to the table, right, as a Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is fast, he hits, and he pitches. But when you have a guy like Juan Soto, who's one of the best hitters we're ever going to see in Major League Baseball, and the comparisons are wild to all these guys who played for a really long time, he's going to get a massive deal. Don't know what it is. He already signed with Celsius, as I said, so he's fired up on energy drinks. But I'm excited to see where he goes. I really hope he does stay in New York. I think that's a great place for him. It's a great place for Aaron Judge, who's an absolutely stellar baseball player who just won another MVP award. And it's just a cool vibe out there for those two guys playing right next to each other, batting right behind each other, and making that prestige of the New York Yankees is what it is. And then they have something to compete with and compete for with the Dodgers and all these big high-level teams. But it is said that, the Mets and the Phillies are in the running for Juan Soto as well, which would be cool places for him to go as well, because the Phillies and Mets are great baseball markets and they got great baseball fans. But I would love to see the Yankees sign him to a long-term deal. They kept Garrett Cole. I don't know what they're going to do with Gleyber Torres. He's on the market, and he might be he's a really good undervalued signing. Excuse me, not underdog, undervalued signing. I don't know if the Yankees are going to keep him or not, but they definitely should keep Soto. And then they have Judge, and they just fill all these other pieces. They got some people in their farm system coming up that are going to change the game that Aaron Boone has talked about. So I really hope they keep Juan Soto. And number two person on the board is Corbin Burns. The Giants and the first-year leader, executive Buster Posey, are believed to have significant interest in Burns after losing Blake Snell to the Dodgers. So you have Corbin Burns still available, Alex Bregman still available, Max Fried is still available, Willie Adames is still available. And we talked about that pitcher, Roki Sasaki, potentially going to the Dodgers to join his other Japanese compadres in Ohtani and Yamamoto. But then you have Jack Flaherty available, who is huge for the Dodgers in some starts. He was a bit hit or miss in the playoffs, but when he was on, man, he was very, very much on. And so Jack Flaherty is going to get signed somewhere. Sean Manaea. You have Nathan Eovaldi, who's the oldest guy on this list at 34, but still can throw the baseball very hard and can get a ton of outs for any team that picks him up. So maybe he'll stay with the Rangers, maybe not, don't really know. But he was huge. He was massive for the Rangers in their World Series run in 2023. Absolutely love him here in Texas. And then the last guy on the list that could be a huge impact anywhere he goes is going to be Pete Alonso, who's a perennial first baseman, 29 years old. I mean, all these guys, except for Juan Soto, who's 26 years old, are 29 and above. Eovaldi being the oldest guy here, and so they're all looking for deals, maybe deals that they can end their career in. I don't know how extended or long those deals will be, but maybe all of them will have deferred money, because that's like the new thing now. That Shohei Ohtani got $700 million and most of it's deferred. But that's just how it works when you want to sign the best players in the world to create the best rosters and the best competition in the world. That's what they do in Major League Baseball, and that's why it's the best place to be if you want to be playing against the absolute best competition. It's Major League Baseball, and so that's my news for the MLB. Excited for more winter meetings, more signings, more free agency, and can't wait for the start of the 2025 season. And now to sort of end this episode, we're going to recap Survivor Series. As I said, baseball is one of my loves. So is professional wrestling, like WWE. I was a independent professional wrestler for a long time. Look up my name. It's called Jackson Stone. But now that's not my career anymore. I've retired. A bunch of my friends are in WWE and AEW. And so now, after some time off from wrestling and, regrouping and finding my career path in terms of what I want to do for my life, I've now become a massive fan again and decided that I'm going to introduce WWE into my sports talk show, because WWE is the best sports entertainment you can possibly have. It's action, it's theater, it's sports, it's entertainment, it's athleticism. It's the best fucking shit. And so Survivor Series, which is one of WWE's big four shows of the year, happened last night. It always happens around Thanksgiving time. And there was 5 matches. in the card. And Survivor Series normally is like an elimination 5-on-5 style, but they've rebranded it and changed it to War Games, which is like 2 rings inside of like a steel cage, and new people come in like every 3 minutes until all 10 competitors are in the ring. Then the match officially starts, and it's till 1 pinfall. And so it's chaotic. There's so many things happening. People are jumping off tables and ladders, and everything's moving around, and there's a lot of boom, 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 boom. It's just cool matches. There's a lot of intensity, a lot of action. A lot of things have to go perfectly in terms of pacing and timing, which is really hard when you have so many competitors in there. But I give the show an overall rating of like 8.5 out of 10. Thought it was a good show. Some stuff wasn't as good as others. Kicked off a little bit slow, but then business really picked up after the triple threat match, which was fucking incredible. The first 2 matches were okay. Match number 3, match number 4, and match number 5 were really good. And they sort of saved the show and made it an 8.5 out of 10. But match number 1 was the women's war game match. And I give this match a 6.5 out of 10. The first half of this match was not good. It was not good. There's just not much else to say about it. It's no fault of the competitors. I think the first 2 women who were in the ring weren't matched up very well with one another, because you want the match to start off fast-paced, high action to get the fans involved. And Bayley versus Nia Jax, Nia Jax is more of a, slow-paced, sort of clobbering, massive style, beat you down type of competitor. And it just didn't mesh well with Bayley, and it started off slow, and there was a few missteps and mishaps. But anyways, the second half of the match really picked it up with Io Sky and Ripley and Stratton, all these people sort of saving the match, coming in, dominating, bringing up the flair, bringing up the intensity, bringing up the match. And then the finish was great through the table, really, really perfectly executed and well done. So because of the second half of that match was so much better, it saved it. And that since the second half and the finish of the match was so good, it ended up saving the match, but still just a 6.5 out of 10. And then match number 2, you had LA Knight versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura's got this new look, but for a really long time, he's been one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet. LA Knight is just a pure sports entertainer. Fucking gotta love him, man. Looks good, talks good, acts good, like really, really great. This was a solid match, just a solid back and forth United States Championship match. Didn't really know who was going to win here, because they've always been building the storyline for about 3 weeks. And again, I'm fresh, new into all of this stuff, so I'm trying to pick it up as I go with all the storylines and what's happened over the summer and leading into this and leading into Royal Rumble, leading into Mania, all this stuff. So it's been very interesting and fun in that regard. But Nakamura picks up the win, becomes the United States champion. Solid match, pretty good back and forth, pretty good finish using the steel in between the 2 rings. And that match, I give it a 7 out of 10. And then match number 3 was Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser versus Braun Breaker. I was fortunate enough to be able to work on some shows with Ludwig Kaiser with WXW in Germany when I was performing in my career. And that guy has always been a freaking beast. He looks absolutely fantastic, and he's a workhorse, and he's a true professional. And this match, I knew from the beginning, was going to be hard-hitting, was going to be intense, and was going to be really, 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 really good. And it was. I think this was the match of the night. I really do think this was the match of the night. It was amazing. I give it a freaking 10 out of 10. All of these guys brought everything they had. I mean, Braun Breaker is fast. He's strong. He has intensity. His facial expressions are great. But I think Ludwig, stole this match. Like he really got it done. And, Sheamus is a professional. He's been a great performer. He's a surefire Hall of Famer. He's put on some of the best matches we've seen over the last 10 years. And just a combination of these 3 guys, their timing, their intensity, their movements, the build-up, like everything was just unbelievable. Like triple threat matches are really hard because of the timing and the pacing, and you don't know when to come in and this and pulling the ref and blah, 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 all this stuff that has to go into executing this match at a really high level. And they just did a fucking phenomenal job. Did a phenomenal job. This is a great match. I was on the edge of my seat, just like, oh shit, oh, so good, like so good. Cheers to Braun Breaker for being one of the top rising stars in WWE. This guy's going to do amazing things. And so I give that match 10 out of 10. Just 10 out of 10. Great. And I always have a soft spot for Ludwig because I, work with him. We went out a few times together, and he's just, great. Cheers to him. Amazing match. That was match number 3. And then we move to match number 4 with Gunther versus Damian Priest, 2 guys I actually know quite well. Again, Gunther was trained with him, worked with him with WXW when I was in Germany, and Damian Priest, I was able to work with him at the Monster Factory in Philadelphia. And so 2 guys that I have a ton of respect for, who are 2 of the absolute best performers on the planet, like bar none. They just know what they're doing inside of that ring. And there's just no way this match wasn't going to be phenomenal. And it was. And I give it a 9 out of 10 because I didn't love the finish. I don't know why Finn Balor had to be there. Not sure, what happens with all that storyline, the Judgment Day, and how long that's been dragging on. But looking at Twitter, people are sort of sick of that and really didn't need it. I mean, the best part of that Finn Balor interfering was that Gunther just kicked him right in his freaking face, get him out of there. Boom, power bomb, finish, awesome, make him go to sleep, beautiful. But the match was just a classic main event, and the classic stuff works. You build up something, you build up the anticipation. There's an actual good guy and a bad guy, and people are waiting for the action to move, and it's paced right, and it's methodical, and it's aggressive, and it's hard hitting, and you pick a body part and you annihilate it, and you work on it. You see how much struggle and pain Damian Priest was in. It's just like a beautifully put together professional wrestling match with 2 of the absolute best performers on the freaking planet. Loved it. 9 out of 10. I still think that triple threat match was just a little bit better, just because triple threat matches are really hard, and those 3 dudes absolutely fucking crushed it. But again, Gunther, Damian Priest, amazing. So proud of both of them. I know that really doesn't sort of mean anything to both of those guys, but to me, it means a lot to see my friends or people that I respect or people that I care about doing absolutely incredible things on the world stage. So that's awesome. And that was match number 4. And then match number 5, the main event, was the men's war game match, sort of the culmination of the show, which you had the OG bloodline versus the current bloodline. And I mean, you have 10 guys in here who are absolute professionals. You have the CM Punk, Roman Reigns type of stuff. You have Paul Heyman in there. You have the addition of Bronson Reed. You have Jacob Fatu, who's been on a tear. Like, I don't think we've seen someone in their rookie year make as much movement and damage as Jacob Fatu. I think he's main evented 3 pay-per-views this year. He's absolutely crushing it. And the match was really good. Again, I don't think it was better. I really don't think it was better than the triple threat match. I give that match an 8 out of 10. I thought the triple threat was the best. Then it went into Gunther versus Damian Priest, then the men's war game match, then LA Knight versus Nakamura, then the women's war game match. But this was a great match, 8.5 out of 10. And the only part that I'm kind of still worried about was Jacob Fatu went for that moonsault. I think he actually might have hurt his knee. I don't know, obviously, but you pray that he's okay and like actually something catastrophic didn't happen to his leg, because he's a really good performer. And I have some friends who work with him on the indies who say nothing but great things about him. And he's an absolute beast. He's a great performer, and you don't want to see anyone get injured, especially when their stock is rising. They're doing great things and they're living out their dream in WWE. And so that's awesome. And then you think about Solo Sikoa, who main evented SummerSlam, main evented Bad Blood, and now main evented Survivor Series. Like, maybe some people don't want to admit it, but Solo, his character evolution in the second half of 2024 has been nothing short of exceptional. I think he's taken this ball and he's really run with it. He's absolutely killing it. It's a big spot to be in, to sort of take over the Roman Reigns mantle, because, Roman Reigns, one of the greatest WWE champions of all time, with his title reign and his presence and his aura and the way he does things and all that stuff. Now Cody Rhodes has taken that mantle, and I'm really excited for him and Kevin Owens. I thought they were going to wrestle at SummerSlam, or Survivor Series, sorry, at SummerSlam, because last week I predicted that they would, because that was some of the match predictions that I was seeing, and they had a big feud on Friday Night SmackDown. There's a great promo, but they're not going to have their championship match until Saturday night's main event. I think Cody Rhodes is going to retain, but I would not be shocked if Kevin Owens won, just because he's one of the best performers over the last 10 years. He wrestles and speaks with intensity and authenticity, and it's beautiful. And both of those guys are going to put together something really, really, really magical. And it could just be another great title defense for Cody Rhodes as a fighting champion. But we'll see how that goes. But this match was really good. This match was really good. You had a little bit of tension that you saw between CM Punk and Roman Reigns. You had the accidental spear, but then you saw, at the beginning, who was going to leave the cage, who wasn't going to leave the cage, who's the big dog, who's the real big dog, who's the leader, who's not. Then you have Paul Heyman out there trying to make sure that everyone stays on the same page. And then you get into the ring. You have this miscue where Roman accidentally fucking smokes CM Punk with a spear. But then you have CM Punk save him from the table, which got Bronson Reed out of there. Like all these sort of back and forth things. And then you have the stuff at the end where they hugged each other and Roman was on the side and they hugged each other and CM Punk was on the side. Just a lot of different dynamics. But they teased us a lot because there was rumors that The Rock or Brock Lesnar might come out, and they just waited and waited, and it was so long to end the show, and you got fans like, ooh, what's gonna happen, and then nothing happened. So WWE always does a great job of building that anticipation. I mean, that's why they're the best company on the planet, because they know how to build anticipation. They tease, and then something happens. Some things are easy to predict because it's the best move forward, but they do such a good job with that. What are they going to do building towards WrestleMania? What's going to happen with the bloodline, the OG bloodline, all these sorts of things? What's going to happen with Roman and CM Punk? Is Jacob Fatu okay? Like, what's Solo going to do now that the team is lost? Like, so many different dynamics moving forward that could be played with going into WrestleMania season, because that's what's about to happen, because we're about to have the Royal Rumble, and then that means WrestleMania season has started. And it's cool to see such a powerful storyline built around just personal vendettas and wanting to be the best in the world and leaders and group dynamics, and nothing to do with championships, which you have other great rivalries and feuds going with championships. Just talked about the one with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, and all this stuff is happening. So it's really cool to see all that. Interested to see what happens with The Rock. I don't really think we need a Brock Lesnar, but a lot of people have talked about him coming back. I don't really care if that does. You love to see The Rock and sort of finish that feud with Roman Reigns. How are they going to build that? What's going to happen there? Because WrestleMania is now 2 nights, so I think that gives them a lot to work with, which is really cool. And so, yeah, I gave that match an 8.5 out of 10. Match of the night was the triple threat at 10 out of 10. It was an amazing match. Show was really good. It's the first full WWE show that I've watched in a really, really long time, and I had a great time. My wife enjoyed it as well. Maybe she watched a little bit of it. She absolutely went nuts when I think it was Jimmy Uso went to the top of the cage, jumped off, hit Jacob Fatu. She's like, he's dead. There's no way he's alive. And it was awesome to see her reaction to that. That was one of the fucking coolest things I've seen too. And then obviously it leads to the finish of the match, and some of the stuff that you think might happen might not happen. WWE always does a great job of teasing that stuff, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that's all I have for you in this week in our sports talk show. Again, this show is sponsored by Champions Adjust. So if you need any performance apparel or mindset training, or you want to listen to the rest of our podcast episodes, we release an episode every day, and this episode comes out once a week. Please go to champsadjust.com. Other than that, the best way to help us out is just share the show, share the link, share whatever. If you found it valuable, fun, exciting, interesting, or even if you think I did a horrible job and you want to make fun of me to your friends, share them the link. Say this guy sucks at what he does, but have fun watching it anyways. But anyways, appreciate you watching. Thanks for your time and attention, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.